In our latest podcast episode, we explored the notorious murder of the List family. Although law enforcement knew who was responsible, it would take decades before the perpetrator was finally arrested and convicted. This gripping case, titled Into the Killing, is available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and other popular platforms where quality stories are shared. Before diving into today's story, we want to thank Redecor for sponsoring this episode. Redecor is now accessible on both Android and iOS devices. You can download it for free via the link in the description. It's a creative and engaging game that allows you to style photorealistic rooms and craft unique interior designs directly on your phone. One of its most exciting features is the ability to decorate Monica's apartment from the TV show Friends, giving you the chance to personalize it exactly as you imagine. Each level is a competition, with your designs judged by 10 players and your score ranked among 9 others. Surprisingly, I've even secured first place a few times, despite considering myself a poor interior designer. Watching home renovation shows clearly paid off. So, get your creative juices flowing and enjoy the process of redecorating. Download Redecor now for free on Android and iOS through the link below. Turning to a different story, in the spring of 2000, Barry Gruno was a beloved English teacher at Lake Worth Middle School in Florida. Known affectionately by students as Shaggy because of his resemblance to the character from Scooby-Doo, and also as Chuck for his similarity to Chuck Norris, Barry was passionate about his work. He was especially favored by 13-year-old Nathaniel Brazil, a student from a troubled household marked by alcoholism and domestic violence. Police had been called to Nathaniel's home 5 times that spring, and his mother was battling breast cancer. Despite these hardships, Nathaniel excelled academically, was an honors student, played the tuba, and was well liked by both peers and staff. On May 26th, Dvaitisici, the last day of school before summer break, a guidance counselor caught Nathaniel and another boy throwing water balloons. The counselor sent them home, but Nathaniel was furious because he had been looking forward to saying goodbye to friends and planned to return to school later that day. He confided in a friend that he intended to kill the counselor. That afternoon, Nathaniel stole a small caliber handgun, a cheap pistol he had taken from his grandfather's house, and returned to the school about 2 hours later, after classes had not yet ended. He went straight to Barry Gruno's classroom, where his girlfriend and another friend were present. When Barry refused to let Nathaniel speak to them, Nathaniel pulled out the gun, cocked it, and shot the teacher in the face. He then fled the scene, and later that day, 13-year-old Nathaniel Brazil was arrested. In June of that year, authorities decided to try Nathaniel as an adult. The district attorney offered a plea deal. If he were convicted of first-degree murder, he would face life imprisonment without parole. Alternatively, they proposed a 25-year sentence with the possibility of parole after 21 years, citing strong evidence against him, including eyewitnesses and security camera footage of the shooting. Nathaniel and his parents rejected the plea deal, and he proceeded to trial in May of 2001. Nathaniel's lawyer argued that his client was guilty of manslaughter rather than first-degree murder. He explained that Nathaniel was nervous and that the gun, being poorly made, likely discharged accidentally. The district attorney countered by stating that Nathaniel was angry on that day. He had returned to school armed with a gun with the clear intent to harm someone. For the weapon to fire, it had to be cocked by pulling back the slide, an action witnessed by several people who then identified Nathaniel as the one doing it. He was then seen aiming the gun at Barry Gruno's head. The prosecutor contended that this demonstrated Nathaniel's intent to kill Barry Gruno. The trial lasted 2 weeks, and after 16 hours of jury deliberation, Nathaniel Brazil was convicted of second-degree murder. He faced a potential sentence of 25 years to life in prison. Some members of Barry's family and the district attorney believed he should serve at least 40 years, while others close to Barry argued for the maximum possible sentence. Ultimately, Nathaniel was sentenced to 28 years without the possibility of parole. Upon release, he would serve 2 years under house arrest, followed by 5 years of probation. Despite being only 13 at the time of the shooting, Nathaniel was not placed in a juvenile detention facility. Instead, at 14, he was immediately transferred to an adult correctional institution. He is currently incarcerated at the Jackson Correctional Institution in Malone, Florida, and is scheduled for release in May of 2028, when he will be 41 years old. In memory of Barry Gruno, Lake Worth Middle School named its gymnasium after him. During the dedication ceremony, Barry's wife, Pam Gruno, shared messages she believed he would have appreciated. She urged students to hustle on the court, joke around without hurting others, value people over possessions, always do what's right, and not take themselves too seriously. She also encouraged students to discuss books from Barry's class, share them with friends, teach younger children to love literature, and read aloud to them. Following Barry's death, his friends and colleagues established a scholarship fund to support students aspiring to become teachers and in need of financial aid. In another story from the early 20th century, 13-year-old Emily Bienert was living in a reform school in Interbog, a village in Germany, after being abandoned by her parents. She attempted to escape 3 times, but was caught each time and returned to the institution. For her repeated attempts, she was subjected to harsh punishments administered by Sister Clara, the head of the school. Emily, seeking revenge, learned that Sister Clara drank a glass of brandy every night before bed. She gathered some wild, poisonous cherries, steeped them in brandy, and placed the poisoned mixture on Sister Clara's dressing table. That night, Emily told the other students that Sister Clara would soon die and that someone kinder would take her place, much to the surprise of her family. The following morning, Sister Clara was alive and in good health. It was later discovered that she had noticed something off with her brandy's color, prompting her to discard it without drinking. Meanwhile, Emily managed to steal sulfuric acid from a factory, which she then poured into Sister Clara's glass of water. The moment Sister Clara took a sip, she immediately sensed that something was wrong. The acid had begun to corrode her lips. Despite this, she survived the ordeal. However, Emily was far from satisfied with merely scarring her teacher. Her intent was to cause her harm. Determined, the 13-year-old obtained white lead and added it to Sister Clara's coffee. Unaware of the poison, Sister Clara drank the coffee, and hours later, she became violently ill. After several agonizing hours, she died. It quickly became clear to investigators that Emily had poisoned her teacher's coffee. She was arrested and sentenced to 18 months in prison. What happened to Emily afterward remains uncertain, but having served her full sentence, she would have been released before turning 15. In the spring of 1978, a different tragedy unfolded in Austin, Texas. Wilbur Grayson, known as Rod, was a 29-year-old English teacher at Maturison Junior High, located in an affluent neighborhood. On the morning of May 18th, Grayson was instructing 21 students when a 13-year-old named John Daniel Christian entered the school armed with a .22 caliber rifle. John was a familiar face at the school, participating in many of its theatrical productions. Coming from a prominent family, he resided in a well-to-do house near the school. His father, George Christian, had served as press secretary for President Lyndon Johnson from 1966 to 1969. John's early life was marked by a mix of privilege and intense pressure. His mother, Joanne, was a well-known lawyer in Austin's elite circles, while his father served as an advisor to the governor of Texas. Despite their success, the family was described as distant and dismissive, with high expectations that left John feeling overwhelmed and burdened. The day before a crucial school presentation, John's behavior took a disturbing turn. While his teacher, Rod Grayson, stayed home with a sick child, John was scheduled to speak in Grayson's class about a chapter from Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. Instead of delivering a normal report, he acted erratically, ranting incoherently and drawing a disturbing picture of a couple in bed on the blackboard. When told that Grayson would be angry upon hearing about his conduct, John nonchalantly replied, "Don't worry, I'll bring a gun tomorrow." His friend thought he was joking. The next day, John entered Grayson's classroom, where the teacher sat before 21 students. Without warning, John aimed a gun at Grayson. Despite the threat, Grayson remained calm, recognizing the seriousness of the situation. 13 years old at the time, John declared, "The joke's on you," and then shot Grayson in the head, arm, and chest. After the attack, John calmly exited the classroom, discarded the weapon outside, and began walking away. He was quickly detained by a gym teacher and taken to the principal's office. Remarkably, John's mother arrived at the school before the police. The 29-year-old teacher, Rod Grayson, was pronounced dead at the scene. John never publicly explained his motives, but speculation suggests that Grayson's failing grade, given after a few stray days, may have played a role. Since John was only 13, the maximum penalty he could face was juvenile detention or reform school until he turned 18. The district attorney announced plans to seek the harshest possible punishment, which would have meant a 5-year stay in a juvenile facility. However, this did not come to pass. Instead, 2 psychiatrists examined John and diagnosed him with acute depression and schizophrenia. Their findings were unchallenged, as no evidence or testimony contradicted their assessment. The judge ordered John to remain in a psychiatric hospital until he turned 18, or was deemed mentally fit. He was transferred to a private psychiatric facility in Dallas, where he spent about 20 months before being released. Afterward, John graduated from high school, attended university, and eventually became a lawyer. As of April of 2020, a Texas Monthly article reported that John was living in Austin, working as a tax attorney. His story remains a stark reminder of how early trauma and mental health issues can culminate in tragedy, yet also how rehabilitation and resilience can follow. Christian, who is 56 years old, appears in today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to explore our sponsor, Redecor, which allows you to redesign spaces like Monica's living room from Friends. You can download Redecor through the link provided below. That's all for today's content. Once again, thank you for tuning in.